And I think that, that I think is a sort of a much more powerful way of engaging in professional development than sort of going on a course here or a course there. What we're building is a sort of an approach to leadership training that addresses the needs that we have, but also builds upon the wisdom and experience and good practice that there is in the group. And I think that's a very powerful and authentic way of working. And I'm hoping that we can begin to develop that as an approach over the next sort of number of months. Is that, am I going too far? And it seems to me that that is absolutely necessary, particularly as we sort of as we're getting into, quite substantively the work of the Action Zones project. The other area I've been doing quite a bit of work on recently, and there's a paper I think floating around today about differential approaches to school improvement. When a situation is really quite poor, then we've got to be quite top down and quite sort of instrumental in our work. As we become more competent, we move from awful to adequate to good, then the movement from sort of good to great can't be mandated by anybody else. It's done by ourselves. It's an achievement that, of our own as we engage and collaborate with others. And that's why the sort of the subtext of the work we'll be doing today is called Unleashing Greatness, because no one can tell you what to do. It's you reflecting with others on the needs of the school, pulling in the expertise and the wisdom that is around us, and actually forging our own sort of direction. And so that is what I'm hoping that we can do today, but also as we sort of continue to work together. So, is that all right? Does that make sense? Am I sort of communicating? Does that sound okay? Now, it's been difficult. So I was thinking, as I was preparing this, I was thinking, well, how do we begin to sort of emulate this in a sort of a workshop setting like we have today? And I thought that what I'm going to try out on us is that we actually use some case studies of schools very similar to your own as a sort of a mirror that we can hold up against your own practice. And so as you reflect on these case studies I'm going to be taking us through this morning, I hope that you can begin to learn a little bit from them, but also more importantly, hold into sharper focus your own practice, and then to enable you to reflect on that, but also then to be able to share the good practice that you're doing in your school with other schools as well. So I'm hoping that this will be a sort of the first session before morning tea is a way of actually beginning to get into this modality of working. I'm not trying to tell you what to do. What I'm trying to do is to set up a situation where you can see clearly the practice in some other schools and use that as a way of reflecting on yourself and extending your own practice. So that's what I'm going to try and do in the first session this morning. And we're going to, I've got an activity as part of this session where I'm really hopeful that we can really sort of try to articulate the good practice in our own schools and use this as a basis for sharing. And the case study the case studies I'm going to share with you is of 12 outstanding schools in England, but these are schools which are very similar to your own insofar as they are located in areas of quite challenging circumstances, where the socioeconomic background of the schools are actually quite challenging, and yet these schools have become quite outstanding in terms of the metrics that we use in England to sort of measure school success. So, and it's interesting, I was working yesterday with Vic Zabar, and as you know, Vic has done some work on outstanding schools in Victoria, and the profiles of the schools that Vic has been looking at and the profiles of the schools that I'll be sharing with you today are very, very similar. Greatness is a fairly, great schools look fairly similar across cultures. So I want to try and do that in this in the first session before morning tea, and I'm going to lead you through that reflective exercise. And then after morning tea, we want to try and move into a further reflection on where you are going as an individual school and the role that the leadership teams, the principal group, are playing in the school to actually sort of take forward a change and transformation. And we'll be engaging in a reflective exercise. I call this a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats analysis, which is not a conventional planning tool, but more of a way of reflecting upon the dynamics of change in your own schools.